We're gathered at this hour to do a signing of the joint statement. So the Foreign Minister and the Undersecretary of State will be signing, while I will read the statement for those of you who have not seen it. The inaugural session of the U.S. Liberia Partnership Dialogue. The inaugural session of the U.S. Liberia Partnership Dialogue was held on May 7th, 2013 in Washington, D.C. to build on the special historical ties between the two countries and to convene two of the Partnership Dialogue's three working groups, agriculture and food security, and energy and power infrastructure. The official delegations were led by Liberia's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Augustine Ngafuan, and the U.S. Department of State's Undersecretary for Political Affairs, Wendy Sherman, who affirmed their shared commitment to deepening bilateral cooperation on a range of issues. The Agriculture and Food Security Working Group was co-chaired by Liberia's Minister of Agriculture, Florence Chenoweth, Feed the Future Deputy Coordinator for Diplomacy, U.S. Special Representative for Global Food Security Acting, Jonathan Schreier, and the U.S. Aid Bureau for Food Security Assistant to the Administrator, Paul Weisenfeld. The Energy and Power Infrastructure Working Group was co-chaired by Liberia's Minister of Lands, Mines, and Energy, Patrick Sandolo, and the U.S. Department of State Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Energy Bureau, Amos Hochstein. Recognizing the important role the agriculture sector can play in increasing food security and nutrition and rebuilding Liberia's economy, the United States and Liberia reviewed and discussed potential reforms to address existing policy, infrastructure, and institutional constraints. The working group recognized that ensuring efficient land use and addressing land tenure reform, enhancing the availability of high-quality inputs, and easing farm-to-market access are key steps to promoting private sector-led development in Liberia's agriculture sector. The United States and Liberia also committed to continued collaboration to improve Liberia's policy-enabling environment for food security and nutrition through, but not limited to, the Feed the Future initiative. Both countries intend to increase efforts to connect private companies from their respective countries to invest responsibly in Liberia's agriculture sector. Understanding the importance of accessible, affordable, and secure energy to creating domestic employment and building a prosperous Liberia, the United States and Liberia commit to continued cooperation to better meet Liberia's growing power generation, transmission, and distribution requirements, and build the capacity and transparency of Liberia's power and energy sector. Acknowledging the positive development benefits hydrocarbon revenues could bring to Liberia if commercially viable quantities are discovered, both governments plan to work together to lay the foundation for an inclusive, well-governed, and regulated oil and gas sector that will encourage future investment. Both governments plan to convene the second session of the U.S. Liberia Partnership Dialogue in Monrovia, Liberia in late 2013, and intend to follow up on the action items discussed in the Agriculture and Food Security and Energy and Power Infrastructure working groups during the intervening months. The United States and Liberia affirm the importance of expanding Liberians' access to education and employment opportunities and look forward to including matters related to human development in future high-level discussions. And then for the signatures by the two representatives. And now let me call on the Foreign Minister to make a statement. You want to stand up here?
Honored Secretary Sherman, the distinguished members of the U.S. and Liberian delegations to the Partnership Dialogue, members of the United States Institute of Peace Family, members of the Full Estate, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by expressing, again on behalf of President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the government and people of Liberia, our profound thanks for the convening of what was indisputably a very successful inaugural session of the U.S. Liberia Partnership Dialogue. we thank Honored Secretary Sherman and the entire U.S. government for the very warm hospitality accorded the Liberian delegation since our arrival and the excellent facilities placed at our disposal. I want to give thanks to Mr. James Marshall, President and CEO of the United States Institute of Peace, and entire staff of this institute for being a great host. We also want to thank profusely the U.S. Ambassador accredited to Liberia, Her Excellency Deborah Malak, and her team in Monrovia, as well as various officials of the State Department who worked tooth and nail with our team in order to make this day possible. Over the course of the last few hours, our respective delegations have deliberated lengthily and deeply on a host of issues related to economic growth and development in Liberia, with a special emphasis on agriculture and food security, as well as energy and power infrastructure. We have today committed to continued collaboration to improve Liberia's policy-enabling environment for food and nutrition security, and to improve Liberia's power generation, transmission, and distribution capacity, as well as enhance capacity and transparency in Liberia's power and energy sector. The commitments we've made here today are lofty and laudable, but the challenge going forward will be translating these commitments into action. Therefore, we look forward to deeper and closer links at the technical levels between our respective sector institutions so that concrete action steps can be crafted in the next few months to actualize our commitments. The idea of a U.S. Liberia Partnership Dialogue was conceived in 2012 during the tenure of former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. We are happy that in spite of the transition in the State Department, U.S. government commitment to deepening the partnership with Liberia has not flagged an inch. Therefore, we want to thank Secretary of State John Kerry for the continuity of commitment to Liberia and look forward to expanding the scope of the partnership dialogue to cover as many other areas of cooperation as our both governments will deem appropriate in the future. The Liberia of today is a post-conflict country that has made tremendous strides to put itself firmly on the path of peace, democracy, good governance, economic growth, and development. But we are still buffeted with colossal challenges as we deal with our difficult legacy of conflict and the debilitating features of fragility. The future we have is challenges and uncertainties, requiring us to look to our good friends to help us navigate successfully through the headwinds. The United States was a good friend indeed during our darkest hour, and the United States remains a friend indeed during this epoch of hope and promise. Today, by convening a successful session of the U.S. Liberia Partnership Dialogue, we have erected another strong bulwark in the consolidation of our already excellent bilateral relationship. Liberia and Liberians anxiously anticipate the opportunity of welcoming members of the U.S. delegation to Monrovia before the end of this year as we convene the second session of the U.S. Liberia Partnership Dialogue to take stock of tangible progress we would have made since this first session and take up other areas that are critical and central to Liberia's progress, including human development. Thank you very much.
I feel like we should just stop with your eloquent words, Mr. Minister. Thank you very much. But then again, I want to thank you, Mr. Minister, for sharing your reflections on the U.S. Liberia Partnership Dialogue. They were indeed very eloquent. I also, as you did, want to recognize the hard work of the U.S. Institute of Peace staff, of course, its leader, Congressman Jim Marshall, our Liberian colleagues, and my U.S. government colleagues, including those in the State Department's Africa Bureau, in making the inaugural session such a success. Throughout the day, as I understand from talking briefly with the minister and with our staff, we have advanced the U.S. Liberia bilateral relationship, a relationship already rooted not only in our historical ties, but in our shared commitment to democracy, human rights, and economic advancement. The joint statement that Minister Ngafuan and I just signed affirms the commitment of our two governments to work together to address the challenges Liberia currently faces in its agriculture and energy sectors, and acknowledges their importance to Liberia's overall economic development. We have committed to hold the next session of the U.S. Liberia Partnership Dialogue in Monrovia, Liberia, within the next year. At that session, we plan to convene the first meeting of the dialogue's Human Development Working Group. The high-level participation from both of our governments demonstrates the significance of the U.S. Liberia Partnership Dialogue to our bilateral relationship and the importance of the sectors that were discussed today in the working groups. In the Agriculture and Food Security Working Group, for example, colleagues discussed policy and institutional constraints to private sector-led development of Liberia's agriculture sector and ways to address these constraints. Together, we explored opportunities to expand bilateral cooperation to increase food security and nutrition, especially under the Feed the Future initiative. The Energy and Power Infrastructure Working Group reviewed Liberia's efforts to meet its growing power generation, transmission, and distribution requirements. We will continue to collaborate on how we can encourage private sector investment in Liberia's energy sector by improving regulatory policies and to accelerate the development of a well-governed and inclusive Liberian energy sector. Though the official government-to-government portion of the U.S. Liberia Partnership Dialogue has come to an end, I'm delighted that the Foreign Minister and the rest of the Liberian delegation will participate in a public outreach event that will discuss how the government of Liberia and its partners plan to transform Liberia into a middle-income country through an inclusive and equitable economic development strategy. This event, open to the press and the public, will further highlight the achievement made today and will allow private sector, civil society, diaspora, and others to engage with the government of Liberia on its plan for Liberia's economic future. We all have a role to play in Liberia's progress toward a growing and sustainable economy, and it is clear to me that that is led by the Liberians themselves, which is as it should be with all of the rest of us in support of your vision and your destiny. Liberia's future is full of promise and great opportunities. Thank you all for a very successful inaugural session of the U.S. Liberia Partnership Dialogue and for your friendship with the United States. We look forward very much, I in particular, to meeting again in Monrovia, and I want to commend to you Acting Assistant Secretary Yamamoto, who is going to take my place for any questions and answers that follow, but I greatly appreciate all of the hard work done today. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Don, why don't you come up? We would particularly welcome any questions from the press who might be present, but we're also open to questions from others who are here who may want the minister or the acting assistant secretary to elaborate on the statement or the comments that have been made previously.
Yeah, I'm Hillary Kono and report for the United Nations Radio in Liberia. My question is to the American government. The restoration of electricity is very key to Liberia's development. With the launch of this dialogue, what are the Americans thinking about doing to make 2015 for the actualization of 2015 and bringing electricity to Liberia?
You're going to have to stand up here. You're going to have to stand up here, Dante. You're not mic'd, are you? Minister, you want to comment on that?
On each other's flags would be good. Please, Mr. Minister.
Okay, thank you, Journalist Corner from the United Nations Radio. Well, as you know, one of the what we call the structural impediments to growth in Liberia is the lack of energy. And that in this era of transformation, government is exerting significant effort and resources in trying to rally all its partners around this effort. The Minister of Energy, the Minister of Finance, and the entire government team, led by our President, have been working tooth and nail to ensure that we bring power at an affordable rate sooner than later. 2015 is the year targeted by our energy gurus to ensure that we deliver on this. Liberians are looking forward to this, and we are rallying our partners around this effort. The U.S. government has assisted us in the interim in terms of, I think, diesel power generation, because before we reach to 2015, we must at least expand access. So we look forward to closer collaboration with the U.S. government. Beyond the hydroelectric plant that we intend to install or inaugurate in 2015, Liberia has huge hydroelectric potentials across the country. And we also have potential in biomass and others. So I know my energy folks will be engaging their counterparts on the technical details of these. But as I said, in the context of our bilateral relationship, there will be follow-ups, and I think this partnership will help to advance our collective objective.
Let's put Liberia in the context of all of Africa. For the United States and other countries in Europe and Asia, Africa really in many ways is the final frontier for development and opportunities. And if you look at one of the major impediments or one of the structures that we're looking at throughout Africa is power generation, power grids, and infrastructure. If you look at the trend lines now, 40% of the continent will be urbanized. Electricity will be a very major function of trying to develop and expand those access. Now, if you look at the fastest growing economies in the world, 7 of the 10 are in Africa. If that's the case, then we, as the United States, need to look at how can we support that development. But more important, how can we support U.S. access into these markets? These bilateral relationships, these strategic relationships, we only have with a few countries, and Liberia is one of them. That underscores the importance that we attach to this relationship, but also the potential that Liberia poses, not only for the United States, but for the region of Africa. And I think this group on power generation infrastructure is very important. It will continue, and we're committed to seeing this succeed.
Are there other questions? If not, we'll draw this session to a close and reconvene at 4 o'clock for the public event. Thank you.
Thank you very much.